sports journalism.
Okay, you're a journalist. You're a journalist. We're not. We're just out here throwing crap against the wall. Does it bother you if he's having a beer before the big game?
No. Look, when you first hear it or see it, it's stunning just because of what we think of our athletes nowadays. They used to be commonplace, Colin. Bob Lanier, the great Bob Lanier, who died, I think it was last week, he used to smoke cigarettes at halftime, which sounds crazy. But that's how it was back then. And so, Luka, let's put it this way. I doubt, Colin, this is the first time during a playoff series or regular season even that Luka's had a beer, right? If he is having a beer today, he was probably having beers during the Phoenix series, too, and we saw how that turned out. So, no, I can't be upset about it at all.
All right.
I can't be
well,
mad.
And also the European thing is, they're a little more free with their lifestyle. So, whatever.
Yeah,
kids in Europe drink with their families at like 14, 15 years old. So maybe that's why I'm going to move there. Okay. I like Golden State to win the series, but Steph's numbers were not as good. I looked it up last night. They weren't as good against the Mavericks. I like Golden State, but I don't think it's going to be easy. What do you make of this series? Because they played a couple of times this year. Anything jump out to you when they played earlier, Chris?
Well, look, I'm with you. I've got Golden State in 6. Luka is scary. There's no doubt about it. Luka Doncic scares you because no one's been able to stop him. And if you go back to his playoff history, even Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, two of the great perimeter defenders of this era, could not stop him. And so, they're scary, and you got to give them a puncher's chance just because of him. But I do think Golden State takes care of them. Now, a lot of people are looking at the regular season, Colin, and, Dallas beat them 3 out of 4 times. Steph kind of struggled. Nick Wright, I heard it from him all this morning, and he's just going on and basing everything on that. First of all, the regular season's totally different. Some teams are on a back-to-back. Some teams are playing 4 games in 5 nights. And most importantly, everybody's not playing. And here's the thing, Colin. People aren't looking at this. They played 4 times. Klay Thompson only played 2 of those games. Draymond Green only played 1. All right? And Jordan Poole had not yet emerged into what he is when they were playing against Dallas. And so all of that's a factor. So, they threw the kitchen sink at Steph. But you can't do that when Draymond's on the floor because Draymond's the playmaker at that point, handling the ball. And that now Steph is running around moving without the ball rather than handling it all the time. And then, of course, if Klay is there, you're going to pay the price by throwing the kitchen sink at Steph. So we can't take a ton from what they did in the regular season.
Yeah.
One of the games when Steph and Klay played together, they blew Dallas out by almost 40. And so, I look, Phoenix, for all of Phoenix's defensive prowess, offensively, they had one bona fide 20-point scorer, Devin Booker.
That's true.
DeAndre Ayton's a really good player, right? He's not a consistent 20-point guy. And Chris Paul's a reluctant scorer. That's not his nature to go out and get 25 a night. And so they had one guy. Golden State's got 3, Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, and Steph. Plus, Andrew Wiggins can light it up from here and there. So I think Golden State gets them.
I said with Boston last night, they found out right before the game, I think Marcus Smart wasn't going to play, and he would have helped guard Jimmy Butler. I really did feel like last night, I thought Miami had 3 more days rest. I mean, they were missing a starter, but they knew it going in. They've been playing without Lowry for a while. Yeah. I honestly thought that at halftime, after Miami weathered the first half, I thought Boston just looked sloppy and tired. That series with Milwaukee, Chris, Milwaukee throws big bodies at you. They're a physical team. Yep. And so in game 1, I thought the second half, I thought Boston looked shot. So I didn't take a ton from the game. Or should I give Miami more credit?
Well, certainly you give Miami credit. I think they knew at halftime, look, this is a hole. If we lose this game, this could be a hole we can't dig ourselves out of. I mean, if I was watching the game and I picked Boston in 6, but from the first half, you could be thinking, this might not go 6. I mean, if they beat them in Miami, as you mentioned, Miami had more rest, in Miami, without Al Horford and without Marcus Smart, both of whom are expected back at some point in the series, Miami's in deep trouble. And I think Miami turned up the heat, credit to them. But a lot of what happened in that third quarter, Colin, was just self-inflicted. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Jason Tatum, what it showed you is that just because you're a good ball handler, a great ball handler maybe, you're not a point guard.
Yeah.
And he struggled bringing the ball up and making those point guard type decisions. Most of his turnovers, if you look at them, were like, what are you thinking, Jason? Credit Jimmy Butler and the defenders, but he could, like, some of them were just terrible, boneheaded plays, him dribbling into obvious double coverage, or Jimmy Butler lurking. You could see him playing the passing lanes, and he still passes the ball. Getting his pocket picked by Victor Oladipo, throwing a terrible pass at the rim to Robert Williams III. So I think that it's possible Boston relaxed because, as you mentioned it, what you saw from Miami in the first half defensively was like a day in the park for Boston compared to what they had gone through with Milwaukee. They had 40-something points in the paint in the first half against Miami, so they're thinking, wow, this is a little bit easier, and I think they may have relaxed. The next thing you know, here come the gangbusters from Miami. So I think it's a good series, but I still feel very comfortable about Boston being the better team.
Hey, what did you make
when they're healthy? When they get their guys back.
What did you make of that story on Westbrook the other day, where I thought I laughed about it actually, where they said they're asking potential Laker coaches, how are you going to use Westbrook? Now, I will say in the last 35 years, the Lakers have 8 titles. The Celtics have been more consistent, but they have 1. So we can keep lauding all the draft and developing of Boston, but it's not getting them the bag, and the Lakers have had the bag 8 times. So say what you want, but L.A. tends to be a pivot, attract, free agent, trade. They're much more aggressive than Boston. They don't really, it's like Yankee baseball doesn't develop as much as they acquire. Lakers acquire more than develop. But I saw that headline, and I thought, man, they have bottomed out. If you're trying to figure out the enigma, I mean, that's like a big bottom line. They're not going to hire somebody who can't figure out Westbrook. Yep. This franchise in bigger trouble than I think. What did you make of the story?
Well, what I made of it is that I think it's due diligence, Colin, because they may not be able to trade Russell Westbrook. I think they will ultimately. I thought, I mean, at the end of the day, you might just buy him out. But let's say they don't want to do that. They can't move him in a decent deal, and he is back. You at least want to see what a coach's game plan is if Westbrook is there. You saw what Frank Vogel tried to do with him. What would you do if this is our roster? So I got to be honest, I just see it as more due diligence. I think they need to get rid of Russ at virtually all costs. But if I were interviewing guys for the position, I want to know, what do you do if we don't have Westbrook, if we have this type of roster? But right now, this is who we have. What type of offense, defense, how you going to play if this is our unit? So that's how I look at it, Colin. Doesn't mean they're definitely keeping Russell Westbrook, but it's just smart due diligence, in my opinion.
Yeah. You know, if Boston, here's the thing, Chris. I was looking at Robert Williams last night. You know, he averaged 2 points, 5 points, 8 points, 11 points. He's classic draft and developed by the Celtics. Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. That's what they do. If they can't beat Miami, and my takeaway is, well, they needed to break Chris Middleton's injury to get past Milwaukee. Middleton's coming back. Giannis isn't getting worse. Philadelphia's got talent. Miami's got talent. And Miami's always attracted free agents much more than Boston. If Boston loses this series, what do you do with this? You're just going to keep drafting and developing? What do you do with this group of guys? I got nothing to show for it.
Well, look, you make an interesting point because the way they won their one championship since Larry Bird was that they went out and traded for Kevin Garnett
That's right.
and Ray Allen.
That's right.
To add to Paul Pierce. So I'm with you on that. However, I would not panic. Look, it's disappointing if you lose to Miami because Miami doesn't have the talent that Boston has. Miami started, Colin, 2 undrafted guards last night.
Yeah.
Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. Now, credit them. They played well. They fit into that Heat culture. They play hard. They shoot the ball well. So they've become pretty decent players. But still, 2 undrafted guards. And that just tells you P.J. Tucker is in the starting lineup. He's made something of himself. But that shows you the talent discrepancy between Boston, which has Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, 2 lottery picks, and Miami, which has Jimmy Butler. You know, Bam Adebayo, obviously a very good, highly touted player. But they don't have the talent that Boston has. So it's a disappointment. But here's what if I'm Boston, I say, look, our star, Jason Tatum, is 24. Our other one is 25. Now, granted, they've been to several conference finals now, 4 for Brown, 3 for Tatum. At some point, you got to get over the hump, and this seems to be the year. But we also have a rookie coach in Ime Udoka who's done a fantastic job, but still, he's in his first year. And so that's how I would look at it. Yeah, you want to add a few things here and there, make a couple tweaks, but I wouldn't panic because I think this bunch is tough. I think their culture there is good, and I think that they would come back better next year if they have this group. Because Jason Tatum, as good as he is and as much of a step as he